The Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere line is officially back as the Rangers crush Tampa Bay 7-3. We tell you why you should expect more greatness from this trio.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1424 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And awesome win tonight for the Rangers, 7-3. It wasn't perfect. Obviously, there were times where I think they could have defended it a little bit better, although they did tighten that up at least a little bit as the game progressed. But overall, you got to like what you're seeing. The biggest problem that this Ranger team had been facing early in the season was scoring goals, or more specifically, the complete inability to score goals. But they've obviously rectified that in recent games here. 7 goals here against Tampa, 6 goals against Nashville in the game before this one, and led by the Lafreniere, Trocheck, Panarin line, the resurgent Lafreniere, Trocheck, Panarin line. So we're certainly going to talk about their big night and give them their props. We also have to turn our attention to a defenseman pair that I think, some of us were maybe a little bit unsure of coming into the season. Will Borgen and Carson Soucy getting the job done. And finally, going to be talking about Igor Shesterkin and his kind of strange night. A little bit of a mixed bag for Igor, but he got it done when he had to, and we'll talk about that as well. But we begin, like I said, with this Lafreniere, Trocheck, and Panarin line. I was asked on social media during this game. I don't even remember what I posted or what I tweeted, but somebody basically asked me, John, are we back? And I said, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not sure if I'm all the way there yet. There are still some question marks on this team, but I did say that I am cautiously optimistic. This team has now won 6 games or 6 out of its last 8 games, and not 100% sure if this team is back. Not 100% sure if this team is like a bona fide contender or anything along those lines yet. It is still early in the season, but this line, this trio, Lafreniere, Trocheck, Panarin, oh yeah, it looks like they're back in a major way. Vincent Trocheck is literally back, okay? He just got back in the game before this one, scores a couple of goals here, had a couple of assists in the game before this one, and he's just hit the ground running. I mean, no rust whatsoever, and I think Trocheck just kind of reminding all of us, something that I think deep down we already knew, but a stark reminder here from Trocheck, just how important he really is to the success of this team, and frankly, to the success of this line as well. Because obviously these guys have been the line that's kind of carried the day offensively for the Rangers at 5v5 over the last handful of seasons. 2 years ago in particular, they were awesome. But they combined for 7 points here against Tampa. One game after, they combined for 7 points against Nashville. And one thing that I love here, and one thing that I can point to as a reason why I really believe this line is back, and if they're not at the level that they were in 2023, then it's obviously very close. 2023, 2024 to be exact, is because just how dangerous these guys look off of the rush. A staple of Ranger hockey 2 years ago when this team was President's Trophy winners, when they were in the conference final and putting up all these awesome playoff wins and the vibes were great and everything, is this line's ability to produce at 5v5, and specifically this line's ability to produce off the rush, to create off the rush, to overwhelm opponents off of the rush. We saw that several times in this game. The Rangers scored a couple of goals off of the rush. This line specifically did that. And you watch them in this game. You watch them in the last couple of games here. I mean, the passing just looks effortless. They zip into the offensive zone like they own the place. The chemistry between these 3 players is just off the charts. And if they can stay at or near this level that we've seen the last 2 games here, they're going to be right back to the level they were at 2 seasons ago when they were one of the best lines in the NHL. And I thought the biggest play that these guys made on the night, and I don't say that lightly because they made a lot of big plays, but to me, it was right at the end of the second period. They scored a goal here. Vincent Trocheck scored a goal here that made the score 5-3 in favor of the Rangers. And this is really a strange game because the first period, you had offensive fireworks. It just felt like it was one of those nights where, every puck was going to go into the net. The Rangers were up 4-3 at the end of 20 minutes. And obviously a mixed bag there because, it's nice to get some offense, but they didn't defend very well. And Igor was shaky in the first period as well. But they obviously still have the lead. We go through almost the entire second period without a goal being scored. 7 goals in the first period, and it was looking maybe no goals in the second period. And then finally, the Rangers break through to make it 5-3. Gavrikov does a nice job here. He takes a hit in the defensive zone to get the pass to Artemi Panarin. Panarin zips into the offensive zone and then draws a couple of defenders toward him. Panarin's up the left side there, and he makes just a brilliant pass across the ice through some sticks and some skates and whatnot over to Vincent Trocheck. Trocheck moves a little bit closer, lets the shot fly, and he scores and makes it 5-3, with just 1:41 left in the second period. This, to me, again, the most important goal that the Rangers score on the night, the most important play that these guys made on the night, because Tampa was obviously in the game. They're only down by a goal. It's a high-scoring game. This can obviously still go either way. And on top of that, I felt that Tampa had the better of play for the most part in the second period. They obviously outshot the Rangers. I think they outchanced the Rangers. By that point in the game, Igor kind of stepped it up a little bit. But big goal here to get this and kind of demoralize Tampa going into the third period. And obviously the Rangers had their way with Tampa in the third period itself. And this goal here that was scored by Vincent Trocheck, this was also the knockout blow to Andrei Vasilevskiy. I believe this is the first time the Rangers have chased a goalie from the game, the entire season. I'm trying to think. I know they beat Buffalo 4-0 early in the game, but I don't think there was a goalie change in that one. I do think this is the first time off the top of my head that the Rangers chase a starting goalie from the game, and they do it to a brand name, multiple time Stanley Cup champion, and one of the best in the business in Andrei Vasilevskiy. Now, the Rangers, they do catch a little bit of a break here, because when you're going up against an elite goalie and said elite goalie just does not have his A game, just does not look sharp from the opening faceoff, you've caught a little bit of a break. But by that same token, this line that we're talking about here and the Rangers as a whole, they made life tough on Vasilevskiy. They were relentless in the first period, created a lot of really good scoring chances. I mentioned how dangerous this line looked off of the rush. I mean, the Rangers, worked and earned everything they got in this game, I think, for sure. It's not like all 5 goals that Vasilevskiy surrendered were all, painfully soft. There may be 1 or 2 in there that he would want back. But man, the Rangers were opportunistic, and it started, like I said, with this line here. But at the end of the night, I mean, Trocheck ends up with 2 goals. He scored to make it 6-3 in the third period. Panarin to Vakanainen to Trocheck. That was a beautiful goal. Lafreniere had a goal. He buried a pass from Artemi Panarin, a cross-ice pass in the first period. And Panarin ends up with 4 assists in this game and was fantastic. He's been on an absolute heater ever since he shaved his head again. I don't know if that's what's causing it, but I mean, hey, look, if you believe that getting a haircut is going to make you a better hockey player, this sport is so mental that it probably will make you a better hockey player. And Panarin has obviously been very, very good ever since that happened. And again, I mean, this line a couple seasons ago, Panarin and Trocheck and Lafreniere, they were an absolute joy to watch. And like I said, it looks like they're getting back to that level. There is reason to be optimistic about this line. Again, the chemistry is off the charts. They're dangerous off the rush. They're opportunistic. They're finishing their chances, which is something that nobody on the Rangers was doing early in the season. But it's all good stuff from this line right now, and you just hope that it continues and they continue to build on what they've accomplished in these last couple of games here. So in just a minute, we're going to go from a line combination to a defense pairing. These guys had what I thought was a really solid night. Will Borgen and Carson Soucy, they've been just solid in general to start the season. And we're going to give them their props, talk about some of the things that they're doing well, and also going to talk a little bit about Igor Shesterkin. Like I said, bit of an odd night for Igor, but he was there when the Rangers needed him, and he did lock it up for the final 40 minutes of this game. So we'll get to all that good stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us cannot even name all of our financial investments, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it is easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money is going and how to make it work harder for you. You can review everything with your partner, see your shared goals, and make better financial decisions together. So do not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. All right, let's go keep everything rolling here On Locked On New York Rangers, got to give a huge shout out to the everydayers. As always, thank you guys so much for supporting the show. And thank you for making Locked On now the #1 sports podcast network. So going forward on Locked On Rangers for the upcoming week, we've got 3 pre-recorded episodes. They're all going to drop at various points during the week. So make sure you're checking the whatever audio platform, YouTube, or however you either listen to or watch Locked On New York Rangers. They're going to be some pretty evergreen episodes. But once I'm back the following Saturday, we'll hit the ground running and we'll talk about everything going on in Rangerland. Hopefully more wins, hopefully more good news. Definitely looking forward to that. But for right now, let's keep the focus on this game. And let's talk a little bit about the Rangers' second defense pairing, Will Borgen and Carson Soucy. I thought these guys were great in this game, and they've mostly played well overall this season, as has really the entire Ranger defenseman group. And we'll talk a little bit more about the defenseman group as a whole in just a couple of minutes here. But let's give these guys their props here, because, again, I thought they were very good. Will Borgen, very impressive to start the season. I actually want to go back to the most recent game before this one against Nashville and talk about a play that he made in that game that I just, really liked. Wanted to get to it in the last episode, but you know how it is. We got a lot to talk about after these games. So the Predators are into the offensive zone. I think it was Stamkos. He's up the left side, and he's got seemingly a path to the net. And Borgen, fights to get back in position, takes the body, didn't even look at the puck, just knew that if I can get in this guy's way and prevent him from getting to the front of the net, it's going to be a good result for us. And that's exactly what he did. He was able to, despite not really having the angle, get back in position and body Stamkos and basically knock him off the puck. And the puck basically just trickled back behind the goal line. And that was the end of that. And that's something that I really like about Will Borgen is this guy, he defends like his life is on the line, basically. And specifically, he does that when it comes to somebody getting to the front of the net. There's other Ranger defensemen in the past where you got to believe, the same play, the same situation. And I know Stamkos has fallen off in recent years, but him driving to the net, he's probably going to get there. And Will Borgen just wasn't having it. He wasn't going to let him get there. But as for this game, another just blue-collar night for Will Borgen. And he ended up, I would say, getting rewarded by the hockey gods in this one. I want to break down his goal because it was very unique in the fact that 3 different Ranger defensemen contributed to this goal. How often do you get to say that, right? So there's a situation where Braden Point's taking the puck into the Ranger zone up the right side. Fox is able to lift Point's stick and gets it to JT Miller. JT gets into the offensive zone. And eventually, it looks like Tampa is going to clear. But Soucy steps up. He maybe kept this puck in the offensive zone by at most an inch or two. Full extension of his stick to make it happen. Kept the puck in. He circles back behind the net into the offensive zone. Puck goes around the boards to the other side. And then Will Borgen ends up with it. And he's got the puck along the boards. He's fighting to keep possession. It looked for a second like Tampa was going to take the puck and go in the opposite direction. And Borgen just as quickly got the puck back. Basically, Borgen tipped it away from the player on Tampa. Don't remember who it was, but he tipped it away from the Tampa Bay player right to himself, picked it up, and then kind of circled back to his right and had an open path to the net. I mean, not straight to the front of the net, but he got a little bit closer, and then he took the shot, and it took a fortunate bounce for the Rangers, and for Borgen, it went off the stick of a Tampa defender and into the net. And you could say that that's dumb luck or whatever, but you know what? He made this happen, and he made it happen by obviously making a really nice play along the boards, preventing Tampa Bay from breaking out with the puck, and then recognizing that he had a chance to shoot, recognizing that he had some time and space to move a little bit closer to the net before shooting. And that was just a great play. I mean, again, you'll take the lucky bounce for sure, but in a way, maybe that's the hockey gods, like I said a minute ago, rewarding Borgen for playing some blue-collar hockey to start the season. That was his first goal of the season for the Rangers. And, I know with Borgen, there were some mixed feelings because a lot of people didn't necessarily like the Capo-Caco trade. And I certainly had mixed feelings on it when it happened. And all the best to Capo-Caco. He was injured for a while for Seattle to start the season. Hope things work out well for him there. But the Rangers bring in Borgen, and they end up giving him an extension. And even me at the time, you look at that extension, it's like, 5 years, that's a little long. $4.1 million a season, that's a little bit expensive. It wasn't like an egregiously long contract or an egregious overpay in my very humble estimation. But then to really illustrate that point, you saw this offseason. I mean, free agent defensemen were signing like big contracts. And I'm not even just talking about like the best of the best defensemen that were available. No, guys that are typically bottom 4, maybe even bottom 2 defensemen, bottom pair defensemen. These guys are signing contracts that are fairly long and fairly expensive and all around more lucrative than the contract signed by Will Borgen. So all of a sudden, it doesn't look so bad. And of course, the rising cap helps with that as well. But Will Borgen at $4.1 million a season, that's not bad at all. This is somebody that just goes out there and plays blue-collar hockey, and you got to like that. And speaking of blue-collar hockey, his defense partner, Carson Soucy, I thought had a really solid showing as well. It's funny because before the season started, I was doing everything in my power. When we're looking at like line combinations and defense pairings and everything, I was doing everything in my power to keep Carson Soucy out of the top 4 in the lineup. I threw out the idea of putting Braden Schneider on the left side on the second pair, and the Rangers have done that, every so often, every once in a while. I threw out the idea of Matthew Robertson playing there after Robertson had made the team. And the idea of trading Soucy, that was something that was certainly on the table this offseason. Although, like I said at the time, I don't think you would have gotten much for him because he had a tough showing with the Rangers last season. All of a sudden, Soucy has kind of solidified himself in the top 4, and he's earned it. And what I like about his game right now, it's been a while. There was a game not too long ago where he did mishandle a couple of passes, and that obviously wasn't good. But for the most part this season, Soucy has held it down. And if nothing else, he's limited mistakes. You haven't really noticed him, I don't think, in a bad way all that often. In a way where like, oh, he's actually hurting the team. Like I said, there was a somewhat recent game where he mishandled a couple of pucks. But other than that, it's mostly been steady and consistent. And he had a big play in this game, too. He had all in one game a big hit on Hagel and an assist all within a couple seconds of each other here. Now, first of all, let me just say, the hit by Soucy on Hagel, it looked clean to me. But with that said, you never want anybody to get injured. And all the best to Hagel, Brandon Hagel. I hope he's doing all right. Hopefully he doesn't have to miss any time or anything like that. The good news is that obviously he was able to, get up and skate off the ice under his own power. But I do think it was a clean hit. Rangers broke out the other way. Soucy, after delivering the hit, went and got the puck, moved it up to Panarin, and then Panarin gained the blue line. He made that beautiful pass across the ice to Lafreniere, and Lafreniere finished from the doorstep. But a massive hit by Soucy, followed by a secondary assist a couple of seconds later, all on the same play. And, I know I'm not the only Ranger fan that was less than impressed by Carson Soucy last year, but the thing I've always said in his defense, even when I, was not really feeling him being back with the Rangers this year, is that the guy stepped into an absolute mess last season. You guys know it. I know it. The Rangers were an absolute disaster. And Carson Soucy was not going to fix every problem on the New York Rangers. And now that he's had, a full training camp, full preseason and whatnot with this team, and I'm sure has gotten into his teammates a little bit better, all of a sudden things are looking a little bit better for Carson Soucy. I'm not going to put him in the Hall of Fame or anything like that, but for the most part, this guy has done his job and held it down in a second pair defense role for this Ranger team. And he almost scored what would have been an absolute beauty of a goal later in this game. There was a situation where he basically just exploded up the center of the ice, stick handled a couple times, and then got past both defensemen, kind of split the defenseman there, got to the doorstep and got denied. But a great individual effort there by Soucy. If he would have scored here, that's the play of the night across the NHL. That would have been an absolute beauty of a goal. But again, can't say enough about the job these two are doing, Borgen and Soucy. They were also on the ice in some really big spots in this game. In the second period, they were out there for more than 1 minute and 30 seconds. And eventually we got a glove stop by Igor Shesterkin. But they were out there for an extended shift, and they both hung in there against Tampa's top line, limited Tampa's chances in a difficult situation there. There's also a situation where, there was a 6-on-4 in the third period, and they're out there killing off most of that power play for Tampa Bay. In total on this night, Tampa got a decent amount of power play chances. Borgen ended up with 3 minutes and 19 seconds of time on the ice while the Rangers were shorthanded, while Soucy had 2 minutes and 46 seconds of ice time while the Rangers were shorthanded. Those were the two highest totals among any Ranger defenseman. So the fact that they're going to these guys so early and often and going to them in key spots in the game and the penalty kill, the whole 9 yards, very clearly these two are gaining the trust of the coaching staff as well. So that's obviously great to see. And, I said before, I don't know if it might not have been an episode. It might have been during our mini series that we're doing this season. Rise and Rangers is just a quick video that I post on YouTube every morning or just about every morning. This group of Ranger defensemen, Soucy and Borgen included, they may yet win over this Ranger fan base because there aren't really any superstars there, obviously, other than Adam Fox. But these are guys that just put on their hard hat and they go to work every single game. And you might look at this group and still feel a little bit underwhelmed and still feel like this team could, use another puck-moving defenseman or, a guy that can quarterback the second power play unit a little bit better than maybe Braden Schneider can, although I think Schneider's done okay there. Maybe somebody, a defenseman that just has a little bit more offensive upside than the vast majority of these Ranger defensemen. And there's some merit to that for sure. But again, these guys really do go to work. It's a blue collar group. It's a big group. It's a mostly physical group. These defensemen, we were really worried about this group going into the season. I certainly was, and I made no bones about it on here. But they, as a unit, as a group, have certainly over-delivered to start the season. That's been one of the more fun early season storylines for this Ranger team. So good stuff all around from the Ranger Blue Liners. But in just a minute, going to shift our attention to Igor Shesterkin. Like I said, weird night for Igor. Couple of goals that I think he's got to keep the puck out, but he also came up big for the Rangers in a couple instances as well. Going to talk about that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by DripDrop. When you're hydrated, everything just works better. Your focus, your energy, your mood, even your skin. That's why there is DripDrop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps you running at full power no matter what your day looks like. DripDrop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. Hydration has become non-negotiable for all of us, and DripDrop will help you make you feel sharper, calmer, and honestly, just better overall. Right now, DripDrop is offering podcast listeners 20% off of your first order. Go to DripDrop.com, use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your mind and body performing at their best with DripDrop. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is also brought to you by Gametime. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It is easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer for your team. That's where Gametime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Gametime is the best because they got so many awesome features, including the panoramic seat view where you can basically just take a look at, your tickets and what you're going to be seeing once you get into the venue and how it's going to look, whether you're there for a game, a concert, a special event, whatever it might be. Their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Gametime picks your seats, and you save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers by talking about what was, again, just kind of a bizarre night for Igor Shesterkin. I mean, at the end, the stat line certainly looks good. He stops 33 of 36 shots. The first period in general was obviously kind of crazy for several reasons, not the least of which was the fact that these teams combined for 7 goals and there's odd man rushes left and right and, players just flying up and down the ice. But Igor had a weird first 20 minutes because he made some really nice saves during that period, but he also let in 3 goals. And none of those 3 goals, to me at least, looked like they were completely unstoppable. I think the first one was maybe the worst of the bunch, the Sabarin goal. Basically, he just got beat clean. It was a good shot, obviously, top shelf there. But Igor had a clean look at it, and I think you would just expect him to come up with this one, or at least I would. Again, it was a very nice shot, take nothing away, but you expect Igor to make this save. The Jurgensen's goal was an interesting one as well. The Rangers lost a board battle, and then Tampa ended up scoring on a rebound. Kind of an unlucky bounce. I'm not even sure if it was a rebound per se. It sounded more like, or looked more like the shot hit a Tampa player, then fell to the ice, and then the puck was buried. So kind of a bad bounce on that one as well. But then you also had the Guentzel shorthanded goal. Now, Fox did misplay the puck on this play, just kind of misplayed the entire situation, and Guentzel got the breakaway. And it's a breakaway. No goalie's going to stop every breakaway shot ever, but he was able to open up Igor and go 5-hole. And we've seen that a couple of times recently where, somebody's been able to beat Igor through the 5-hole. So not ideal. Again, these goals that were scored here. You'd like to see Igor keep at least a couple of them out. He obviously wasn't able to do it, but he did make some nice saves in the first period, like we talked about. And the second period in particular is when Igor was at his best. So again, keep this in mind. Crazy first period. 7 goals scored between the two teams combined in the first period. And Igor was then able to not let it snowball, and he was able to keep Tampa at bay. I didn't even do that on purpose. Keep Tampa at bay in the second period. And that was obviously great to see. And then we had that late strike from Vincent Trocheck that we talked about earlier, put the Rangers up 5-3 and gave them some breathing room going into the third period. But Igor was able to make 12 saves in the second period. What I like about all this, though, is just the fact that Igor didn't let it snowball. He didn't let it like compound and have just a terrible night. It wasn't going his way early. Igor was able to eventually lock it down, find his A game, and pitch a shutout the rest of the way. The second and third periods combined, Igor stopped all 26 shots. And keep this in mind, too. This is a battle between two elite goalies, right? Igor Shesterkin and Andrei Vasilevsky. I don't think anybody would argue to the contrary on that. Again, this game was crazy. It was kind of off the rails, whole bunch of offense. And you're watching that first period, and it's like, man, it's one of those nights where every single puck is going to end up in the net. Look, Igor eventually got it together and held it down, and obviously blanked Tampa the rest of the way. Andrei Vasilevsky got pulled out of this game after the second period. He had given up 5 goals, and enough was enough. Now, I mean, maybe Tampa's just doing that to try to spark their team a little bit. That I'm sure was at least part of it. But the bottom line, Igor got it together, and Vasilevsky didn't. So Igor outdueled a fellow elite goalie, and that was great to see. And one more thing I'll say about Igor's night. In the third period, he made some really nice saves during that extended 6-on-4 advantage for Tampa Bay. Tampa was down by 3 goals, so they pulled their goalie, pretty early in this one. I think it was with about 5 minutes to go, give or take. And then they ended up getting a power play as well. So 6-on-4. The 6-on-4 felt like it went on forever, and Tampa did get a lot of good scoring chances on it. And Igor's moving to his left. He's moving to his right. He's making all these great saves. He's sprawling this way. He's going that way. But I'm thinking, watching this, like, man, like, if there's ever a time for Igor to, just take a shot at it, just fire it down the ice at that empty net, this is it. I mean, you're up by 3 goals here, and you're probably going to get the win. I mean, you never know for sure. You don't want to mess around too much. But, yeah, that was a time to go for. Unfortunately, the situation just never really presented itself. Igor never really had the puck on his stick, and therefore never got the chance to shoot at the empty net. Although I got to say, if that did happen, if Igor had any kind of an opening to take a shot at the empty net, you got to believe that he certainly would have gone for it. One other thing that I'll point out here before we call it, I know some people are going to mention this in the comment section, or maybe you've already talked about it amongst yourselves as well. But yes, Tampa Bay was compromising this game. No Hedman, no McDonough, no Cirelli. And then, of course, Hagel had to leave this game in the first period after the hit from Soucy. You know what? That's all true, and that's all well and good. And again, you don't want to see anybody ever get injured, but facts are facts. Injuries are a part of professional sports. And when you do have injuries, nobody feels sorry for you. Very clearly, the Rangers were missing a lot when they didn't have Vincent Trocheck in the lineup. That really hurt this team, and he's back now, and that's obviously helping. Look, if you play a team that's banged up and they got some of their best players out of their lineup, you owe it to yourself to take advantage of that situation, and the Rangers were able to do that tonight. And it's not like they just squeaked by. In the end, again, it wasn't perfect. There were some things the Rangers didn't do well in this game. Bad first period. Second period wasn't great either. Bad first period in terms of defending. But, they eventually locked it down, and they won this game 7-3. It's not like they barely eked them out. So, I mean, maybe if all those players play, maybe Tampa wins. It's at least possible, but maybe the Rangers win as well, because I don't know that those guys would have necessarily made up 4 goals. And I know one was an empty netter at the end, but be that as it may, still ends up being a solid 7-3 win for the New York Rangers. So we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, @jchik17. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.